Would some honourable member care to move the House take note of miscellaneous business? The Honourable Simon Power.
Mr Speaker, I first want to acknowledge the people of Christchurch and the difficulties they are experiencing in the face of continuing aftershocks. Mr Speaker, at times like these, the public look to their leaders for assurance that these challenges are front of their minds. Mr Speaker, this is where I neatly segue into my next point, which is, that is why I was perplexed, Mr Speaker, to hear Phil Goff on the radio this morning defending his leadership over the handling of the Darren Hughes issue. I suppose a proactive way is one word to describe this approach, but it demonstrates two things. The first is the opposition don't know what's on the top of the New Zealand public's mind, and secondly is that the Phil Goff doesn't know what sort of leader he should be. Now, Mr Speaker, Trevor Mallard seems to me actually to be quietly hitting his stride in recent days, and I'm going to come back to that shortly. He's just looking a little bit more comfortable in his skin, and I want to return to that shortly. In the first 2 years of his leadership, Phil Goff struggled for getting control over his caucus, and I can think of several examples of that. In June 2010, Raymond Ho blogs about China freeing Tibet from the notoriously cruel system of serfdom imposed by the Dalai Lama, despite earlier travelling to China with Mr Goff, where Labour's stance on Tibet was made clear. In July 2010, Steve Chadwick proposes a new law to legalise abortion on request for women up to 24 weeks into a pregnancy without checking with the caucus. Winnie Laban accepts a job at Victoria University before she tells Phil Goff. Ross Robertson announces Labour's new top tax rate in January 2011 would kick in, quote, less than the top rate in Australia. The rate there is 45%. This was despite Mr Goff stating the figure and threshold had not yet been decided. But then it changed. Mr Goff decided a new approach was required. After 30 years in the House, he is nothing if not quick learner. He turns the tables on his caucus by unilaterally declaring he won't work with Hone Harawira. Why the change? That's because the leadership aspirants are already marking their run-up. Grant Robertson is being constantly compared to David Lange, mostly by himself, and it reminds me of those annoying people who invent nicknames for themselves, Mr Speaker. But then there's the mystery of why Trevor Mallard spoke on behalf of Labour at a press conference, leaping over David Cunliffe, David Parker, Ruth Dyson, Clayton Cosgrove and Marion Street. While not as senior as Trevor Mallard, they're all ranked ahead of Trevor Mallard. Dare I say it? He looked authoritative and authentic, Mr Speaker. Authoritative and authentic. And I have to say, he started to look just a little bit like a future leader of the opposition. Now, Mr Speaker, in an odd way, Mr Mallard's accident has liberated him from the important business of push bikes so he can focus on his hobby of politics. And it seems to me, Mr Speaker, he's come back far more comfortable. While others on the front bench are starting to squirm, looking down during the budget debate, not paying attention to what their leaders say, Mr Mallard's just busy sitting there looking content and at ease. And I'm sure it wasn't actually the bike accident that has brought about this change of mind. He's looking, it's not the drugs afterwards, Mr Mallard, he is looking in control, energetic, authentic, not doing too much too early, but playing the long game, the very long game, Mr Speaker. But this man knows that if he can just wait Phil Goff out, the opportunities to take back the reins are there for him. Mr Speaker, I think Trevor Mallard has found his mojo in recent weeks, and I think Trevor Mallard knows it's only a matter of time before that long ambition he has held will come to realisation as Mr Goff stumbles from mistake to mistake, accident to accident, misspoke to misspoke. We know that those around Mr Mallard, look, they're already coalescing around him in that corner. Power is where power lies, Mr Speaker. Power is where power lies. And they know Mr Mallard is on the rise. A young man at heart with a lot still yet to offer. And if the gossips I'm hearing in the corridors are anything to go by, a man with quite a promising future, unlike the current leader of the opposition, Mr Speaker.